What started as a routine hearing just turned explosive. Jasmine Crockett is calling out Pam Bondi after what she describes as a direct threat during a Fox News appearance, and now the tension is spilling into Congress in real time.
Thank the chairman. I now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Jasmine Crockett.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I first just want to begin with a news alert. Guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present, because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, you know, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. As he shattered that, he said something about the fact that this should not be about left versus right. It should be about right versus wrong. And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric, and it is because of the selective enforcement of things. And so when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting attorney general go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information, and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'ma say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook, because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him, because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me, and that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
This moment wasn't just political theater. It was a sharp escalation in tone from Jasmine Crockett, who made it clear she believes lines are being crossed at the highest levels of law enforcement. Her argument centered on something bigger than personal grievance, the idea that when powerful officials use media platforms to target elected leaders, it can influence public perception and potentially inflame already rising tensions. That's a serious claim, especially in a climate where threats against public officials are already increasing. Crockett's framing of the issue is strategic. By emphasizing right versus wrong, instead of left versus right, she's attempting to shift the conversation away from partisan politics and toward accountability. It's a rhetorical move designed to resonate beyond party lines, suggesting that the issue isn't about ideology but about standards. What's acceptable conduct for someone in a position of authority like Pam Bondi? At the same time, her criticism of media, specifically her jab at Fox News, adds another layer. It reflects a broader frustration among some lawmakers about how narratives are shaped outside official channels. In today's media ecosystem, appearances on major networks can carry as much weight as statements made in Congress. Crockett is essentially arguing that those appearances should carry responsibility, especially when they involve commentary about individuals in government. Another key thread in her remarks is the connection between rhetoric and real-world consequences. She points to the rise in threats against members of Congress and ties it directly to divisive language and selective enforcement. Whether one agrees with that linkage or not, it underscores a growing concern across the political spectrum that the tone of public discourse is having tangible effects on safety and trust in institutions. In the end, this wasn't just a response, it was a warning. Crockett is drawing a line and challenging both officials and the public to reconsider how power, speech, and influence intersect. Because the bigger question isn't just about one comment or one appearance. It's about what happens when political disagreements start to feel like personal threats, and who gets to decide where that line is drawn.